Jewish Education in Media is pleased to present L'Chaim, a program that highlights the people, issues, and events of importance to the Jewish community. Now here is your host, Rabbi Mark Golub.
I'm Mark Golub, and the most serious development confronting the Jewish world today, and it's been a problem that's been increasing in intensity over the past few years, has been the resurgence of ugly anti-Semitism, especially in Western Europe, in France, in England, in Belgium, less so in Germany, ironically, but in countries where one thought one would never see anti-Semitism arising again, lo and behold, Jews are afraid to walk the streets wearing a yarmulke or a Star of David. And Jews are at times being harassed, even facing violence. There are police cordons around synagogues. And even here in America, Jews are expressing fear of growing anti-Semitism. And more one hears American Jews saying they worry that what happened in Nazi Germany could happen here in the United States. And while you've heard me say repeatedly on JBS that I personally see not a single similarity between pre-Hitler, pre-war Germany and contemporary United States of America, and I personally find such fear to be a symptom of traumatic Jewish hysteria coupled with a lack of understanding of the forces that swept Hitler into power. I still am very disturbed by the anti-Semitism on college campuses and in the halls of the far left, veiled as anti-Zionism, when, as Thane Rosenbaum so perfectly said on JBS, if you want to destroy a Jewish state, you want to destroy Jews. Anti-Zionism is not about opposing an Israeli policy or not liking an Israeli prime minister. Anti-Zionism is a movement against Israel's existence. The anti-Zionist stands with those supporting BDS chanting, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." That's from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. Palestine will be free of Jews. And now in America, freshman members of Congress are publicly stating they support BDS and are perfectly comfortable mouthing traditional anti-Semitic canards such as Jewish money controls American foreign policy, to the point that major figures in the Democratic Party vying for their party's presidential nomination failed to censure Representative Ilhan Omar's hateful anti-Semitic remarks suggesting pro-Israel members of Congress care more about Israel's interests than American interests. And where almost all of the Democratic presidential candidates complied with MoveOn.org saying they should not attend AIPAC's National Policy Conference this year. This, in my opinion, is where American Jewry and American Jewish leadership should no longer be silent or polite. That silence would replicate a facet of history that did mark American Jewish leadership's failure to demand that the Western world stop the Shoah. And more Jews who've been Democrats all their lives are for the first time wondering aloud whether the anti-Israel rhetoric of the left makes it impossible for Jews to feel at home in the Democratic Party. So what's to be done in this backdrop of anti-Semitism from Europe, Western to Eastern, and to some extent here in America? Well, one individual who is trying to do something in the face of anti-Semitism is doing so in a most unusual arena, through sports and on the soccer field. Bruce Buck is the chairman of the Chelsea Football Club, which under Bruce's leadership has won 5 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, as well as the Europa League and the Champions League. But most significantly, Bruce has initiated the largest campaign against anti-Semitism in sports, which goes by the name Say No To Antisemitism, which seeks to educate fans on the dangers of anti-Semitism. And Bruce, it is an honor to have you at this table. Thank you for joining us on L'chaim.
Thank you, Mark. I think you overstated my importance in this project, but I appreciate your kind words.
Well, you're humble, and I appreciate it, but I don't think so. We'll find out as we talk.
The real impetus
Yeah.
for the project that we're engaged in is from our owner, Roman Abramovich, a Russian businessman who is Jewish.
Mm-hmm. And he owns the team.
He owns the club. Mm-hmm. And I'll explain to you how I know him and have met him.
Please.
And have been part of his team for many years. But just to focus on the anti-Semitism project for a moment, in the fall of 2017, the board of directors of Chelsea Football Club were talking to the owner, Mr. Abramovich, and just talking about a variety of subjects. And he pointed out to us the rise in anti-Semitism in Europe, the supermarket incident in France, some incidents in Belgium, some incidents in England. And, all of us at Chelsea recognize the power of, we call it the power of football, you might say the power of soccer,
Right.
and we all might say the power of sport.
Right.
And couldn't we at Chelsea do something, a longer term project, a focused project that might move the needle a little bit?
Okay.
The story started 15 years ago when Mr. Abramovich bought the club. Obviously, he wanted to be successful on the pitch, but more importantly, he wanted to use the force of football for good deeds.
Hazkara Memorial Prize. Sheshet Millionei Achinu V'Achiotenu.
We've seen in the UK, the US, France, a rise in anti-Semitism, and we thought it was appropriate for us to try to use the power of football to combat it.
Roman Abramovich and his team have initiated something of great significance because, unfortunately, anti-Semitism as a problem surprisingly is growing, and we need to take it seriously. And we need to address it through education, through information, through inspiration. And that is the essence of the Chelsea campaign.
A campaign like this will be phenomenal in helping all those who are working to eliminate discrimination, both from sport and society as well as in football. This will make an enormous contribution.
There's no place in sports or any place else for anti-Semitism. I'm so happy what they're doing here to stand up and say no to anti-Semitism.
What happens here in the stadiums is a symbol of what should be happening throughout our society, so it's of enormous significance.
This is not a campaign that's just tonight or for 2 weeks. This is a campaign that's going to go on indefinitely. We're going to plan event after event after event and see if we can make a difference.
Now that I understand, I want to come back. How do you get to London from America?
I was a young lawyer in New York, and I just, having grown up in New Jersey, I thought, it might be nice to live abroad for a little bit. And my wife.
Married?
I'm married.
Were you at the time?
I was at the time. And
What's your wife's name?
Elaine.
So you said to Elaine, let's go to London?
Well, it wasn't as simple as that, because in the firm that I worked for at the time, they had offices in Ankara and Jakarta and Singapore and lots of other places, which I wasn't interested in going to.
Yeah.
It wasn't that adventuresome.
It is?
So I sort of had a lobby and cajole and whatever. And in July 1, 1983, we moved to London.
Okay. You established a home there.
Yes.
And you ultimately established a career there.
Yes.
Okay. Children?
Yes, 3 boys.
Mazal Tov. Where are
They're
they in life?
They're all grown up.
Uh-huh.
2 are married. One's about to be married in about 3 weeks, May 4th, what we call Bank Holiday weekend in London.
Very nice. Did you have
They're all employed, which is a good start.
You're way ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Bruce. Did you enjoy London? Obviously,
I love London.
You do. Why?
I love New York too. I mean, New York's the greatest city in the world. It's a little more it's difficult to bring up children in Manhattan.
Yes.
And in London, it's easier, and it's just been really good for me and my family.
Okay. When you were in New Jersey as a child, were you a baseball fan?
I was.
Who did you root
Bill
for?
Skowron was my favorite player, and I obviously rooted for the Yankees.
Obviously. You go to the stadium every now and then?
Yes?
Okay. So now you're in England.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have baseball there.
For sure.
And you and I know, in America we call football football,
Mhm.
and what is called football in Europe is really called soccer in America.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to learn that game, don't you? When you and I were kids, kids were not playing soccer.
No.
So at some point in your experience in England, you become, my understanding is you are a soccer fan. Am I
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Tell me how that happens.
It happened because I had, in about 1990, I had 3 young boys.
Yes.
And they were all playing soccer. And they said, Dad, and at that time there's a club, Liverpool Football Club, which was the best club in England at the time. And, young people, new fans, always support the best club.
Absolutely.
So, Dad, we're all Liverpool fans. Can you take us to a match? And I was like, well, that's 200 miles away. I'm not sure I'm really up for that. But there's this other club down the road, Chelsea Football Club. Why don't we try that? And that was the beginning, and that's how we all became fans at Chelsea.
Very nice. How do you become involved with the team?
Yes. Mr. Abramovich, in 2003, when he was looking to buy a soccer club, he asked our firm to do it. And the way these things work, since I'm not an English lawyer, I'm an American lawyer, I didn't do the legal work, but as things worked out, I took the credit. And I became a director right away.
Of the team?
Of the club. Mm-hmm. And then 6 months later, I became chairman. Mm-hmm. So I've been chairman since February 2004.
Is it fair to say you have become a football soccer fan?
Definitely.
Okay.
Even before I went to work on the business
Yes.
side, I was a soccer fan with my boys.
The game captured you.
Yes, it's a relatively straightforward game. You don't need a lot of equipment to play it, just a ball. And it's a good sport.
Okay.
It's a combination of ballet and American football.
All right. Did you ever get to see Pele by any chance?
I have never seen Pele play, but I have met Pele several times, and I actually gave him a football and asked him to sign it, which he graciously did.
That's lovely. Did your kids become good at the game?
My middle son became very good. He could have become better, but to become a professional athlete requires an unbelievable amount of effort and time, and that's not where he was heading with his head.
Okay. So let me place this. After a successful career as an attorney, and the fact of the matter is you do end up doing some work with this is after the wall comes down?
Yes.
Okay. So you're in post-Gorbachev, Russia. You're dealing with the oil company, and Abramovich is about to buy Chelsea. When that happened, it made big news everywhere.
Of course.
And he's a very wealthy man, and everybody understood this was a hobby of his, and he wanted to own the team. And you do legal work, and you end up chairman. Mm-hmm. At the same time...
And everybody wanted to know, how did I do it? How did I do it? And I just said I was lucky. I fell into it.
But you're also lucky because it's something you enjoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the same time, the way I understand it is, at some point, you explain, it's Abramovich who says to you, there's an anti-Semitism problem here, correct?
Yeah, it's not like I hadn't noticed.
That's what I'm asking you. Had you noticed?
Of course, of course.
What had you noticed?
That just over the last 10 years, in the last few years, there has been a rise of people being brave enough, I guess, or allowed to say things that 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago, they wouldn't have said. And I don't know why that is, but something has happened in the world to permit it.
And you think it started 5 years, 7 years ago?
No, I don't think it started that long ago. I mean, 5 years ago, well, let me back up a little bit. In England,
Yes.
there has been an anti-Semitism problem of one sort or another for quite a long time, and a particular problem in football. In the 1980s, in football, soccer, in England.
You can say football, we now understand.
Okay, and particularly in our club, there was a real problem.
In your club?
Yes,
There was
with the fans in the stadium.
with the fans.
Both racism and anti-Semitism.
Do you have Jewish players?
No,
You have black players?
yes.
There was racism directed at them.
Yes, and there still is sometimes, but we will hear now and then, and I don't want to overemphasize the problem, we will hear in stadia a racist chant or an anti-Semitic remark, and
I understand why there would be a racist chant. If there are no Jews playing, why would there be an anti-Semitic remark?
because I don't know how to explain this, not because I can't find the words, but because I don't know the answer.
Yes, fair enough.
But it's from the kinds of people that attend these matches. And we also have a very unusual situation, I think, in that we have one club in our league, which is Tottenham Hotspurs, which historically had a Jewish fan base. Now, because of gentrification and other reasons, their fan base has shifted a little bit. But their fan base, who were the subject of racist, of anti-Semitic remarks over the years from visiting fans from other clubs, did something which we call self-appropriation. They started to call themselves that name, the name being the Y word. So they would have chants, "We are the Y word people," as a counterpoint to those that were chanting the Y word to them, if I'm explaining
Yes,
this.
you are. But it happens often that a group that is experiencing discrimination takes the word that is used to insult them and turns it into their own word.
Yes, and but the confusion that has caused has created a real problem, because our position of Chelsea Football Club, after consulting with the Board of Deputies, which is the highest Jewish organization, it's the umbrella organization, if you will, in England, and after consulting with the World Jewish Congress, we believe, and we tell our fans, that the Y word is inappropriate no matter how it is used. And they don't quite understand that because they see the Spurs fans chanting the word, and what it just does is it encourages our fans to chant it in a negative way. And it's created a real problem in terms of trying to stamp out the use of that word.
Fascinating. What is the Y word?
Yid.
Yid. And so you're hearing Yid throughout the stadium at times.
Yes.
Okay. For a long time you were in the stands with
Yes.
your sons.
Yes.
Do you remember hearing it as
No.
a fan?
No.
So this is sort
It's
of
not-
recent.
No, it's not that it's recent. It's that it's infrequent, and it's generally in certain parts of the stands.
In pockets. Okay. In your mind, what does it reflect about English society or London society in a broader sense?
I think it's reflective of society. I think everything that happens in the stadium, because the demographics reflect society, so what they do reflects society. So if there's a little bit of fighting, there's also a little bit of fighting in society. And if there's a little bit of this kind of chanting, then that reflects society, which relates to our Tackling Anti-Semitism project, Mark, because if we can make a change in how our fans behave, then I think it will reflect in society and make a change as to how society.
Good for you. I understand. You know, it's hard. And you grew up in America. You were at Yankee Stadium. And if we had been going to games in 1947 and 48 and 49, there was rabid racism.
Sure, the whole Jackie Robinson.
Of course. But by the time I go to a game, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember being at a game. It doesn't mean there wasn't a racist somewhere saying something despicable.
Yeah.
But I don't remember ever being at a game, and I've gone to many, many baseball games, where I hear a racist chant.
Yeah. Well,
my guess is you didn't either.
No, never.
Okay.
Never.
So, and there may be no answer for this, Bruce, but can you explain where does that come from, that a group of people, and forget even the Yid business, they're expressing a racist attitude towards a black player on the football soccer field? Do you have any sense, as somebody who has experienced now England for this long and London for this long, where does that come from? It's something you and I would not have experienced, even if there is racism in America. You don't go to a ball game, or you don't go to Madison Square Garden, you don't go to see the Warriors play in San Francisco and hear racist chants. And so I am surprised. I didn't know this was so. You're giving our audience some new information. But to the extent to which you have any answer, where does it come from? And why is it, in some way, it has to be socially acceptable, even if it's in a pocket, it has to be socially acceptable. Can you speak to that at all?
Not very well or authoritatively, but I can speak to it. I think the pockets from which the chanting come, that group does believe it's acceptable. Where it comes from society generally, I don't know, but it's usually, if it's a racist chant, it's one group of fans doing something with respect to, say, a black player on the other team, not on their own team. One of the things we see with racism in Europe at football games is what do you call it? Monkey noises. So if a black player comes near a certain area of the stadium or whatever, he might hear monkey chants.
Yes, I understand.
And we've had a few incidents of that when we played when the England team played Montenegro a few weeks ago. Several of the England players, when they were on certain areas of the pitch, they were receiving monkey chants from the home supporters. It's horrible.
It's horrible.
And
this is,
I will say that it is less than what it was.
But it's London.
Yeah.
I was wondering.
I don't want to. I mean, London, you asked me, and I told you London is a great place, and it is. And I don't want to overstate the prevalence of these kinds of things. But let's face it, once is too much.
That is correct.
So there's not a lot of it, but it's abhorrent,
Yes.
even though there isn't a lot of it.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm imagining you, and there you are. I don't know if you're there in some capacity.
Yes.
And you hear this, and it may be the first time you've heard this, and whether you don't say, "What is that?"
Well, that's the first time I heard it, which is now a number of years ago. I had to ask, what are they doing? What are they saying? And because as Americans, we don't really get it.
Yes. By the way, the anti-Semitism that is coming tragically a more common feature of certain areas of Western Europe is normally associated with communities that have come from Muslim countries, and that it is in some way Muslim generated.
I don't know that that's correct.
Is that correct in general, or not correct for London?
Well, I only know the UK.
So let's stick
and I
with
would
that.
say that that's probably not correct in the UK.
Okay.
In fact, not probably, it's not correct. It's generally from less affluent white people, I believe.
Okay. Did you ever see anti-Semitism in the street? Did you ever see somebody make an issue over another person wearing a yarmulke or a Star of David, or harass them because they're Jewish?
I personally have not, no.
Okay. But you know it happens.
Yes.
And this is very
When we were at NYU yesterday,
Yes.
at a conference, at a part of the conference that I didn't attend, apparently 3 NYU students got up and explained to the audience how they were, like, recently being subjected to anti-Semitic comments on the NYU campus, which
mind-boggling, is it? It is mind.
We both use
yes,
boggles.
Exactly right. We experience it the same way. You're 100% correct. It's interesting, though, for you to say, because again, the image we have, based on the way it's expressed, is that it is the growing Muslim percentage of the populations of various Western European countries, like France and like Belgium, that has in some way spurred the anti-Semitism. And you're saying, to the best of your knowledge, it is not true in the UK.
Correct. To the best of my knowledge, that is correct.
And you haven't seen, did you ever, by any chance, did your children ever say to you, Dad, I saw this?
They've never mentioned it to me, no.
Okay. So when you live your life in London, by and large, you don't encounter anti-Semitism. You encounter racism.
I have not seen anything in 35 years.
Okay, so
But of course, I'm not black, so it's not like someone would make a racist remark to me.
Yes.
But I haven't seen
yes.
it occur. No.
Okay, so it may also happen in pockets of communities, not across the board.
It could. I just don't know.
Okay.
But
So-
we do, I mean, lots of black footballers in the UK talk about the issue. And they all talk about having been subjected to racist behavior of one sort or another.
It's sort of painful for somebody to have to watch. I'm sure it's painful for you to, even though it's not directed at you, you care about these people.
Yeah. What's most painful to me is that the process of solving this problem is so unbelievably slow, in the sense that we have always, I mean, yes, we've had this special tackling anti-Semitism program, but for the 10 or 15 years that we've had a charity, a foundation, and we have been running anti-discrimination programs of one sort or another regularly, week after week, month after month. And I have written many letters to the fans about, join the 21st century and this is unacceptable. And then right after that, there'll be something. And
That's painful.
It's frustrating.
Yes, it is.
And, but it doesn't cause us to stop.
Right, doesn't deter you.
Doesn't deter us.
You and I have had the experience as kids. We knew the owners of baseball teams had a certain profile. We knew who they were. The fans know who you are. You write letters to them, and if they see your
that
name,
we put on the website
yeah,
or in the program.
and but they have a sense of who
Some
you are.
fans will recognize me in the street.
No, I mean if Bruce Buck writes something, they know. Oh, that's the chairman of the.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not George Steinbrenner.
Yes,
don't get me
right,
wrong.
right.
but-
Yes, you're not the owner either,
Correct.
right? You're sort of the general
And
manager.
if the owner writes a letter, that gets even more attention.
Okay, and he made you, even though you were aware of it, The sense I have
He's
here,
the one that put two and two together and said, hey, there's the power of sport, the power of football.
Let's do
There's
something.
the problem.
Okay, so now we get there. Explain to our audience, what are you trying to do through Chelsea soccer team, Chelsea football team?
We're trying to move the needle just a little bit
How?
by having a variety. Well, we believe that the best way, maybe the only way, to solve discrimination is through education and awareness. So most of our programs are focused on education.
We've been here today working with a group of Year 5 pupils, delivering a session on anti-Semitism, which links to part of our equality and diversity programmes. We're a club that's very diverse. We work in a diverse community, and we think it's really important to educate children, educate our fans, educate our staff about anti-Semitism and the campaign that the club is actually leading on. So the Holocaust was a difficult time in history, which we'll talk a little bit about in a minute. And people of the Jewish faith had to wear this yellow star to identify them as being Jewish. This is a really great opportunity for us to really educate our young and up-and-coming fans. It's about everybody who links with Chelsea and being part of the Chelsea family. We want everybody in the community to feel comfortable and happy and safe and welcome. And we want to raise awareness and educate everybody about anti-Semitism and why we don't want to have that at our club.
We've had Holocaust survivors, 3 or 4 different occasions. On one occasion, they came to speak to a group of fans. On another occasion, a very powerful occasion, I might add, they came and they spoke to our men's first team. And these are boys from my perspective,
Yes.
but 25 to 30.
When you say first team, they're like your starters?
Yes. And we brought a Holocaust survivor, his name is Harry Spiro, to speak to them. And maybe I underestimated the occasion because I know professional athletes have an attention span of about 10 seconds and are always on their iPhones, either listening to something or talking to somebody. And I thought it was worthwhile doing, but that's sort of the context. But it was totally different. For one, they were mesmerized by Harry Spiro. They listened to his every word. The session ran 45 to 50 minutes. They went up to him afterwards and asked him questions. And it was just a very powerful afternoon.
My name is Harry Spiro. I'm a Holocaust survivor. I'm here to tell my story.
Sometimes it's important to remember how things used to be and realize how lucky we are.
People were dying. Everyone who was sent to Treblinka was sent to the gas chamber.
I wonder what goes through his head, sometimes when he closes his eyes, what he sees and the images that he's seen at such a young age is something that nobody should have to go through.
You became a number. You became dehumanized. It was hell on earth.
To see how difficult he had to do it to survive, I think is important for all of us to understand this.
When you hear the click of a gun, you somehow find a lot of energy. As long as you could walk, you were alive.
We play in the same team sometimes with black people, Chinese people, white, and the world should be like this.
To say no to anti-Semitism, racism, I think we can be a big part of it.
There is still a lot of hard work to achieve what it should be achieved. That people should get on, we should not hate each other.
We've had other occasions with Holocaust survivors meeting various groups. We've taken a plane load of 150 people to Auschwitz as an educational
Were you
awareness.
there?
I didn't go on that trip, but we've had 2 trips. I went on the first trip.
We just arrived at Auschwitz. I want to use the word excited, but excited isn't the right word. The next few hours are finding the reality of the millions that were killed. I'm expecting to feel quite sad, quite mortified about the human race. Knowledge is everything. The more we know about anything, the better we can respect our neighbours.
And I see him many times, a young boy or girl walking to the gas chambers, walking out crying, and they will not forget this.
They knew that Jews were humiliated, but at that time in 1941, 1942, they had no idea that it will all lead to the places like this, to the death camps and to the gas chambers and to the crematoriums.
There were so many things that you've seen that you couldn't kind of, in today's society, unimaginable.
The impact that really hit me was actually going through some of the barracks, and there's just sort of corridor after corridor of shoes. And obviously a shoe has a sole. But think of the soles that were in those shoes, and they were handed out 3 or 4 times. And that sort of sums up in some ways the trauma and hostility went on here.
But there were Jews, and then there were Slavs. There were people who were living here at the area of Poland, Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, and so on. And they were just next in the line to be sent to the gas chambers.
You could see all the hanging posts and the wall where people were killed, and literally on the other side of that wall was just normal people, so hit home really.
Seeing all the photos and stuff of what people had to endure and go through, it's certainly been an education for me anyway.
God bless you. Thank you.
When you see all these people, you know that 75 years ago was only killers here. This is also a story of hope, to be optimistic, to be happy, and to look for the future.
We've been able to meet survivors, people who have walked away from awful crimes that went on. Knowledge is everything. We need to educate players, spectators, and the world's population.
I've learned a lot from today. I know a bit of background on it, but yeah, there's a lot more detail.
I'll certainly be talking about it with my children, and obviously the boys will be spreading it with the lads in the dressing room, and it does make you realise how fortunate you are.
Everybody need to know that you have freedom of choice. You cannot control about things that happen, but you control about your action. Because only love can beat evil.
When you see these people coming past us, streaming past, one after the other, many, many, many-fold more lost their lives. It's been a special day. Special day in a very odd way, but I'm really pleased to have been here.
Was that your first visit to Auschwitz?
It was my first visit. That is a powerful.
Yeah. What was your reaction?
Well, I was quiet most of the day, and I couldn't get it out of my mind for a week to 10 days. It's just unbelievably powerful. And that's what's interesting about meeting these. I mean, it's such a horrible thing when you go to Auschwitz. but you meet some of these Holocaust survivors, and now I've met 4, 5, or 6, and they don't have an attitude of how could this have possibly happened to me. They have a positive attitude, which I guess is how they got through it. You know, I'm going to get through today, and then it's tomorrow, and I'm going to get through today, and then it's the next day. I mean, they're very strong people, and they don't seem to feel sorry for themselves. They're very anxious. They all know that they're pretty much at the end of their lives, and they're all anxious to talk about it and pass it on, because as we all know, another unbelievable thing it's been around for a while but is developing even more in this world are Holocaust deniers. And when the last Holocaust survivor dies, I think the Holocaust deniers are going to have a field day unless we've done enough education. I'm just babbling, and I apologize for that.
No, keep going.
But we had a real institution in London is something called the Imperial War Museum, which has been around forever and is owned by the government. And they have had a Holocaust gallery there for some years, but they are putting in place a whole new Holocaust gallery costing about £35 million, so $50 million, not an insignificant amount of money for a museum to spend. And we are involved with that in the sense that it very much coordinates with our theory of education, and this is education, and Mr. Abramovich has given a donation to help the galleries, and last week we held at the stadium a fundraising dinner for the galleries. And we had 2 Holocaust survivors spoke on the stage. One of them was 98 years old. They pretty much had to carry him on the stage, but he still had a really strong voice and wanted to get his point across.
This was at the stadium?
Yeah.
Was there a game as well?
No, it was a what we would call a charity dinner for 350 people.
And you use a stadium?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. One of the things that everybody is thinking about here in America, in the Jewish community, is Corbyn. And he is understood to be an outright anti-Semite. And the question we always hear is, will Corbyn become Prime Minister of Great Britain? And what would that mean if it were true? What would it mean in terms of the electorate if it ever turned out that the British people, through their election, elected an anti-Semite? You're there. I want your reaction and your sense of this entire issue.
Okay, well, I'm not a political animal, but the Labour Party in the UK has had a problem of anti-Semitism. I don't know if that actually goes to Mr. Corbyn or not, but there's certainly been problems within the Labour Party regarding anti-Semitism. They say they are trying to deal with it, but several Labour Party members of Parliament, not all of whom were Jewish, left the Labour Party because they thought the Labour Party wasn't doing enough. And that's pretty much what I know about it. It's a subject that is fluid, and it needs people smarter than me to figure out exactly what's going on.
So what I hear you're saying is, A, you're not a political animal, and I respect that, but it's more than that. This is not something, Corbyn is not a presence in the daily life of the English people or people in London.
Yes, he is, in the sense that he's the leader of the party not in power. So it's like being the leader of, I guess, the Democratic Party.
Okay, but you were very honest. You said you didn't really have a sense that this was a major problem.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't have a sense as to whether Mr. Corbyn is anti-Semitic, as distinguished from there being problems within the Labour Party, which even Mr. Corbyn recognizes there are. And I don't really have a view as to what, from the perspective of the question you asked, what it means if he would be elected Prime Minister.
Okay. You remember that for Nancy Reagan it was say no to drugs?
I don't remember that.
You
no.
don't. You're too young. But here we have a similar say no to anti-Semitism. What's been the reaction to the slogan, the campaign? And the campaign is just say no, meaning I'm not going to participate in anti-Semitism.
Our diversity
is what makes us strong.
La nostra diversità ist das, was uns stark macht.
There's no place for discrimination in our club,
in our community, or in our society. Say no.
Say no. Say no.
Say no
to anti-Semitism.
I think generally the fans have been very much behind it, have been very positive about it, have been very supportive. The stewards, we have 500 stewards on match day. We've trained them all about how to deal with discrimination, racism, anti-Semitism, how to look for it, how to deal with it.
Are stewards ushers?
Yeah, but more security ushers, if you will.
Okay. Okay.
And we've set up special phone lines and text lines, so if you're sitting in your seat and you see something happen there, you can text and
somebody will come.
Someone will deal with it right away if they can. So that's all been positive. I think outside of our own fan base, I think we've gotten good press over it, and we've had a lot of government officials talking to us about the program. We've had a few other sports clubs, one in America, several in Germany, talking to us about the program, and maybe they would do something similar. So it's been rewarding in that respect, but of course the real reward is to figure out how to measure whether the campaign is actually having any success.
Yes. Your team is owned by a Jew. Are other teams owned by Jews?
Yes.
Do they experience this? Are they willing to go into this Say No to Anti-Semitism program?
One club, the chairman of that club, his grandfather was a Holocaust survivor, and they are doing some things. But we don't look at this as, let's go talk to clubs where there's a Jewish owner or a Jewish chairman or whatever.
We'd like all the clubs to get involved.
I mean, it's because although this particular project is focused on anti-Semitism, I mean, there's the whole discrimination issue that we have to deal with.
I really was looking for whether the other teams in the league were supportive or whether they sort of were aloof and didn't care.
I would say they're supportive. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to do the same thing tomorrow, but I think they recognize that this is a good thing. And it is, of course.
Okay. You were at NYU recently. Why?
The Conference of Presidents was holding, I believe, their annual meeting there. So they had 53 organizations present. And I think the people at NYU thought it would be a good opportunity for there to be a panel discussion about some of the things that we're doing. And we intended to show a video of some of the things we're doing. And so we were there for that presentation.
And who invited you? The university?
The Conference of Presidents and the people at the university.
Okay.
We've done other things at the university. We were there last fall, and we talked to a group of students in their sports management department about our program, because I don't know if you recognize this, but I think it's true just everywhere in the world that sports clubs, professional sports clubs, recognize a responsibility to their communities and do good things all over the world. At Chelsea, we put 2 or 3% of our gross revenues into good causes. So we're a £450 million revenue business. So what's that? $600 million. So we're putting 2-3% of those gross revenues into good causes. Now, you think of any big company in America or anywhere, and if they put 2 or 3% of their gross revenues into good causes, well, we'd solve cancer this afternoon, right? So sports clubs do this up and down the spectrum, no matter how big. We all recognize the responsibility to our communities. So to make a long story short, I was, as part of the sports management program, they are talking to these students about that community responsibility, and we also participated in that to, explain how our club is dealing with that responsibility.
Did you bring any ball players from the team?
No.
So it was just management?
Correct.
Did you speak?
Yes.
What was the reception you received? What was your sense?
Very, very positive.
Tell me.
Well,
who you speak? I should say this. Who are you speaking to?
I was about to explain that. It was, 21-year-olds, 22-year-olds, but the demographic of it was really varied across the spectrum from around the world. So it was a very eclectic group of young people, and they all got it, and they all asked the right questions, and several of them afterwards talked to me about situations in their home country that, hey, maybe we could deal with this, that, or the other thing. It was really very positive, and this is all about, this whole discrimination problem is all about young people anyway. They're the ones that are going to solve it.
But it sounds like they were receptive.
Very.
And it also sounded that they were varied in their own ethnicity.
Correct.
That must have been rewarding for you.
Yes.
Isn't that nice?
Yes.
Yes. Have you experienced anything, any kind of pushback against this movement anywhere where it's...
No.
Isn't that nice?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So in some way there could
But I wouldn't expect, I really wouldn't.
Oh, somebody might say this is... Well,
yeah, you're right.
A
You're
football
right.
team
I mean,
has
there's
no
a lot of
business getting
crazy
involved
people.
in this. And they didn't.
No.
Okay. To what extent is the owner, Mr. Abramovich, pleased? And do you have a sense of where he wants this to go?
He wants it to go indefinitely.
Yes.
He is generally inquiring about what's going on, what things are we doing, what's next, what other ideas. So he's very much involved in overseeing and making sure that we're implementing the program, which was his idea.
Is there anything that you have planned that you can share with us?
We've picked out, I believe, 4 organizations now in the UK, in the US, but there will be more that we will fund projects for them to further the cause, if you will. And we've got very positive, at the NYU event, the chief executive of the New England Revolution was on this panel that I mentioned to you, and he was describing how the people in Boston are really getting behind it.
That's amazing. Well, as you this is our first time meeting. I'm learning about this for the first time. Our audience is hearing about it for the first time. The insights you have are fascinating, and it also, and you'll tell me if I'm being romantic here, while this is a serious problem, it sounds to me, as you talk, that you talk about the speed of progress. It doesn't matter how fast it is. It matters that it's happening. It sounds to me like...
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I would like the speed to be
sure,
noticeable.
Sure. But progress, it sounds to me like, is being made.
I think so. We're actually trying to figure out with NYU how we measure progress. So that's another project in this, is how we measure whether we're doing something positive.
it is, no matter what you do, it's very hard to measure that. And you would hope that one day, you know, you will go to watch the team play. How's Chelsea doing, by the way?
You know, we've been very successful over the last 15
looks like
years.
it.
Mr. Abramovich is, well, he had an interesting view when he first bought the club. He wanted to start winning right away, but also build for the future. And that's pretty much what we've done. We've had 15 very, very successful years.
Oh, Mazal
and
tov.
hopefully we'll have more.
Oh, very, very good. Anyway, what I was about to say was, you'll know if at one point you go to a game or you're in the stands or you're off, I don't know where your office is, and you won't hear a chant. And then you can say to yourself, hey, you know what, we made a difference.
I agree. I mean, but once again, I don't want to overemphasize. I mean, there are many games I go to where I don't hear a chant.
Okay. But you want never to hear a chant.
Of course.
Okay. You know, there's a Jewish saying, it is not your responsibility to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. You live that, Bruce Buck. It has been an honor meeting you. I wish come on. I wish you all the best. And the only thing is, I want to keep track of this so that whether you're office or whether you're back in the United States and you can just sit here, even if it's for 5 minutes, and tell the JBS audience to what extent do you feel in some way you have been successful? To what extent do you feel totally frustrated, or is there somewhere in between? But we'd like to know the extent to which this program you started, which sounds to be fabulous, will have in fact yield some positive results. You are not...
I'm optimistic. I really am.
I'm thrilled. You're not required to complete the work.
Okay.
But you can't ever stop trying, Bruce.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll remember that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the time.
Thank you. Bruce Buck, who is fighting against anti-Semitism with the Chelsea Football Club in London, of which he is chairman. As always, I invite you to be in touch with me with any thoughts or comments you may have to any of the things that Bruce had to say. Please email me, write me, post on our Facebook page, or tweet me. I look forward to hearing from many of you. And remember, you can now listen to our new L'Chaim podcast, which you can find on iTunes or Google Play or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until the next time, I'm Mark Golub. L'Chaim, my friends, to life.
L'Chaim is a presentation of Jewish education in media.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more. Simply visit the JBS website at jbstv.org and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please, indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check to JBS, P.O. Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York, 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.